By the time the last shovel of sand hit his father's grave, Daniel already knew something was wrong. It was not the silence. It was not the black dresses, the wet eyes, or the way his mother, Evelyn, kept holding the funeral program like it was the only thing stopping her from collapsing. It was the smile. A small, almost invisible smile on Vivian's face. Daniel saw it for only a second, just as the pastor lowered his Bible and the mourners began stepping away from the graveside. Vivian stood beside the fresh grave in her black veil, one gloved hand resting against her chest, playing the role of the grieving widow so perfectly that anyone watching from a distance would have believed her heart had been torn out. But Daniel was close enough to see the truth. She was not broken. She was waiting. And 3 days later he found out why. Evelyn was in the kitchen, wearing the same gray sweater she had worn since the burial, stirring tea she had not taken a single sip from. Daniel had just come downstairs when the front door opened. Vivian walked in with a manila envelope under her arm. No greeting. No apology. No pretending. Just the sharp click of her heels against the marble floor his father had once chosen with Evelyn before everything in their lives changed. Daniel looked at her and felt his stomach twist. Vivian removed her sunglasses slowly. "Daniel," she said, "call your mother." Evelyn stepped out of the kitchen before Daniel could move. "What is this?" Evelyn asked, her voice already trembling. Vivian placed the envelope on the dining table and slid it forward with 2 fingers. "You have until sunset." Daniel frowned. "Until sunset for what?" Vivian looked at him like he was a stranger standing in her house. "To leave." The room went quiet. Not normal quiet. The kind of quiet that made every breath sound dangerous. Evelyn stared at the envelope. "Vivian, we just buried him." "And now we deal with reality," Vivian said. Daniel took 1 step forward. "This is our home." Vivian's eyes moved to him. "No," she said softly. "It was your father's home. And according to his final legal documents, it is now mine." Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came out. Daniel grabbed the envelope and pulled out a stack of papers. Legal pages. Signatures. Copies. Cold words that seemed impossible beside the funeral flowers and his father's photograph. He scanned the first page, then the second. His chest tightened. It said his father had left the house, the company shares, the accounts, everything, to Vivian. Everything. There was no mention of Evelyn. No mention of Daniel. Not even 1 sentence. Daniel looked up. "This is fake." Vivian tilted her head. "Careful. My father would never do this. Your father did many things you don't know about." Evelyn grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. "He promised Daniel would always have this house." Vivian's face hardened. "Promises are not property deeds." Daniel felt heat rise behind his eyes. "You waited 3 days. I waited until after the burial out of respect." "No," Daniel said. "You waited until nobody was here to stop you." For the first time, Vivian's perfect mask cracked. "You think grief gives you ownership?" she snapped. "You think crying in the hallway changes the law?" Evelyn whispered, "Please. Let us at least stay for a few weeks. I have nowhere to go." Vivian turned to her slowly. "That is not my problem." Daniel never forgot the sound his mother made. It was not a sob. It was smaller than that. A wounded sound, almost like something inside her had finally broken. By sunset, their bags were on the pavement. Vivian had changed the locks before the sky went dark. Daniel stood outside with 2 suitcases, 3 garbage bags of clothes, and his father's photo wrapped in a towel. His mother sat on the curb, staring at the house like she was waiting for her husband to open the door and say it was all a mistake. But the door stayed closed. Behind the upstairs curtains, Vivian watched them. Then the lights went off. That night, Daniel and Evelyn slept in a cheap motel near the highway, in a room where the air conditioner rattled like broken bones and the blankets smelled of bleach. Evelyn did not sleep. Daniel knew because every time headlights passed across the ceiling, he saw her eyes open. At 3:17 in the morning, she whispered, "Maybe he really did it." Daniel turned toward her. "Dad." She nodded. "Maybe he changed the will. Maybe he got tired of me. Maybe he wanted a new life." Daniel sat up. Don't say that. I don't know what to believe anymore. Daniel reached for his father's photo on the nightstand. In it, his father, Richard, stood at the lake with his arm around Daniel's shoulder. Daniel was 17 in the picture, grinning awkwardly, holding a fishing rod upside down. Richard was laughing. That man would not abandon them. That man would not leave Evelyn homeless. That man would not let Vivian win. But belief did not pay motel bills. 2 weeks later, the motel kicked them out because Daniel's debit card declined. They moved into a single room behind a closed bakery owned by one of Evelyn's old friends. There was no proper kitchen, no hot water after midnight, and the window faced a brick wall. At night, Daniel could hear delivery trucks backing into the alley and his mother crying into a pillow she thought muffled the sound. Daniel sold his laptop first. Then his watch. Then the gold chain his father had given him on his 18th birthday. Every sale felt like cutting off a piece of his old life just to survive another day. Vivian, meanwhile, was thriving. She posted photos from the house. New curtains. New car. Fresh landscaping. One afternoon, Daniel saw a video she uploaded from his father's study. She had turned it into a private lounge. His father's books were gone. His desk was gone. In the corner, where Richard used to keep Daniel's childhood drawings, there was now a glass cabinet full of expensive handbags. Evelyn saw the video over his shoulder. She said nothing. She simply walked into the bathroom and locked the door. Daniel stood outside, fists clenched, listening to the faucet run for 20 minutes. Something dark grew inside him after that. Not anger exactly. Anger burns too fast. This was colder. A question that would not leave him alone. What had Vivian done? The answer came on a rainy Thursday night, from an email account Daniel had almost forgotten existed. He had gone to a public library to apply for warehouse jobs. The computers were old, the keyboards sticky, and the fluorescent lights made everyone look exhausted. Daniel logged into an old email address he had used in high school because one of the job sites sent a verification link there. That was when he saw it. An unread message. From his father. Scheduled delivery date, 2 weeks after Richard's death. Daniel stared at the screen. His hands went numb. The subject line said, "For Daniel, when the house becomes too quiet." For several seconds, he could not move. Then he clicked. The message was short. "Daniel, if you are reading this, it means something happened before I could explain things properly. I need you to stay calm. Do not confront Vivian. Do not trust any paper she shows you until you check the cloud account. Username, my personal email. Password hint, the place where we watched the sky fall. You will know what that means. Protect your mother." Daniel stopped breathing. The place where we watched the sky fall. He was 12 years old. His father had taken him and Evelyn camping after a terrible year, when Richard's business was close to failing and Evelyn had nearly left because stress had turned him into a stranger. They drove 3 hours to a quiet lake outside town. No phones. No meetings. No Vivian. Back then, Vivian was just Richard's office assistant. That night, Daniel and his father lay on the hood of the car, watching a meteor shower cut silver lines across the black sky. Richard had pointed upward and said, "When life gets dark, remember this. Even falling stars still shine." The lake was called Mercy Lake. Daniel typed the password with shaking fingers. Mercy Lake 2014. Invalid. He tried again. Mercy Lake. Invalid. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it. He closed his eyes and pictured that night. The campfire. His mother laughing. His father carving something into the wooden picnic table with a pocket knife. 3 words. Still we shine. Daniel typed. Still we shine 2014. The cloud account opened. At first, he saw ordinary folders. Tax records. Business contracts. Insurance. Family photos. Then he saw one folder at the bottom. Open only if Vivian acts first. Daniel felt the library disappear around him. He clicked. Inside were videos, scanned documents, bank records, voice notes, and one file named Start Here, Son. Daniel plugged in his cheap headphones with trembling hands and opened the video. His father appeared on the screen. Alive. Sitting in his study. Wearing a navy sweater. Looking thinner than Daniel remembered. For a second, Daniel almost slammed the laptop shut because the pain was too much. Richard looked directly into the camera. "Daniel," he said, his voice low and tired, "if you are watching this, I failed to tell you in time. And for that I am sorry." Daniel covered his mouth. His father continued. "I have been sick longer than I told anyone. I thought I had more time. I also thought I could fix a mistake quietly. That mistake was Vivian." Daniel's eyes sharpened. Richard leaned closer. "She has been trying to gain control of my estate for months. I found copied signatures, altered drafts, account access attempts. I did not confront her immediately because I needed proof. Real proof. The kind a court could not ignore." Daniel's hands shook against the desk. "I created this account because paper can disappear. Computers can be searched. Safes can be opened. But Vivian never understood the cloud. She thought if she controlled the house, she controlled the truth." Richard paused, his eyes wet. "She is wrong." Daniel felt a tear fall onto his wrist. His father took a breath. "There is a folder marked evidence. There is another marked original will. There is a video for your mother. Do not let her watch it alone." Daniel looked toward the library window. Rain streaked down the glass like the whole city was crying with him. "And Daniel," Richard said, voice breaking slightly, "whatever she has done by now, do not become cruel to beat a cruel person. Be patient. Be precise. Let the truth do what anger cannot." The video ended. Daniel sat frozen. Then he opened the next folder. What he found did not feel like inheritance. It felt like a crime scene. There was the real will, signed 8 months before Richard's death, leaving the house to Evelyn for life, business shares in trust for Daniel, and a fixed settlement for Vivian that was generous but limited. There were time-stamped security videos from Richard's study. Vivian entering alone. Opening drawers. Photographing documents. One clip showed her holding a page against the window to trace a signature. Another folder contained screenshots of emails Vivian had sent to a document editor using a private account. The subject lines were careful, but the attachments were not. Draft revision. Signature placement. Final version for emergency filing. Daniel opened a scanned document and felt his jaw tighten. It was the same will Vivian had used to evict them. But in the cloud account, there were earlier versions. Versions with missing pages. Versions with signature blocks moved. Versions with Vivian asking, "Can the old beneficiary section be removed cleanly?" Daniel leaned back in the library chair. His grief changed shape. It became direction. At midnight, he returned to the bakery room soaked from the rain. Evelyn was sitting on the edge of the mattress, folding and refolding one of Richard's old shirts. She looked up. "Where were you?" Daniel shut the door. "Mom," he said, barely above a whisper, "Dad didn't leave us." Evelyn froze. Daniel placed the printed email in her hands. She read it once. Then again. Her face crumpled before she even reached the end. "No," she whispered. "There's more." Daniel opened the video on his phone. When Richard appeared, Evelyn made a sound like she had been struck. She reached toward the screen, then pulled her hand back, afraid to touch him and remember he was gone. Richard's voice filled the tiny room. "Evelyn," he said in the recording, "I know I hurt you by letting Vivian get close to this family. I know saying sorry now is not enough. But I need you to know the truth. I never stopped loving you. I never changed my heart. And I never signed away your home." Evelyn pressed both hands over her mouth. Richard continued. "If Vivian has forced you out, then she has done exactly what I feared. Take the files to Attorney Malcolm Reeves. He has the sealed copy. Tell Daniel the blue folder matters most." The video ended. Evelyn bent forward and sobbed so hard Daniel thought she might stop breathing. He held her until morning. By sunrise, something had changed in both of them. They were still broke. Still homeless. Still grieving. But they were no longer helpless. The next day, Daniel found Malcolm Reeves. Not in a glass tower downtown like he expected, but in a small brick office above a pharmacy, with dusty law books and a receptionist who looked like she had seen every kind of family betrayal that money could create. Malcolm was not flashy. He was old, careful, and terrifyingly calm. He watched Richard's video once without interrupting. Then he watched the security clips. Then he opened the original will. By the time he reached the emails, his expression had hardened. He removed his glasses and looked at Daniel. "Has Vivian filed probate using the altered document?" Daniel nodded. "She used it to throw us out." Malcolm turned to Evelyn. "Mrs. Hale, I need you to listen carefully. What she has done is not just greedy. It may be criminal." Evelyn looked like she might collapse. Daniel asked, "Can we get the house back?" Malcolm's eyes moved to him. "If these files authenticate, you may get everything back." Daniel swallowed. Malcolm leaned forward. "But Vivian will not go quietly. People like this do not fear being wrong. They fear being exposed. When she realizes you have proof, she will panic. And panic makes people dangerous." He was right. Vivian found out 3 days later. Daniel did not know who told her. Maybe the court clerk. Maybe someone at the bank. Maybe she had been watching them more closely than he realized. He was leaving the bakery room when his phone rang from an unknown number. He answered. For a moment, only breathing. Then Vivian's voice. "You went digging." Daniel stopped on the sidewalk. Behind him, the bakery sign flickered in the morning light. He said nothing. Vivian laughed softly. "Your father always made you feel clever, didn't he?" Daniel's grip tightened around the phone. "You forged his will." "No," she said. "I corrected the future." "You stole from a dead man." "He was my husband. He was my father. And yet he trusted me enough to marry me." Daniel's jaw tightened. He trusted the cloud more. The silence that followed told him everything. Vivian knew. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. "Listen carefully, Daniel. Whatever you think you found, it won't save you. Files can be misunderstood. Videos can be challenged. Grieving sons can look unstable. You're scared." "No," she said. "I'm experienced." Then she hung up. That evening, Evelyn found an envelope slipped under their door. No stamp. No name. Inside was a photograph of Daniel entering Malcolm's office. On the back, written in neat black ink. "Stop before your mother loses more than a house." Evelyn's hands shook so badly the photo fell to the floor. Daniel wanted to run to Vivian's house and scream until the neighbors came out. But he heard his father's voice in his mind. "Be patient. Be precise." So he took the envelope to Malcolm. Malcolm placed it into a plastic sleeve and said only one thing. "She just gave us more evidence." The legal battle began quietly, but it did not stay quiet. First came an emergency filing. Then a temporary order freezing the estate. Then a hearing scheduled for the following Monday. Vivian arrived in court dressed in cream, not black, with pearl earrings and a face calm enough to fool anyone who had never watched a liar rehearse grief in a mirror. Daniel sat beside Evelyn. His mother's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles looked white. Across the aisle, Vivian did not look at them. Not once. When the judge asked her lawyer whether the will she filed was authentic, Vivian lifted her chin slightly, as if insulted by the question. Her lawyer spoke smoothly. "My client is the lawful widow. These allegations are the desperate reaction of excluded relatives who are struggling to accept the deceased's final wishes." Daniel felt Evelyn flinch beside him. Excluded relatives. As if she had not built that home. As if Daniel had not grown up measuring his height against the kitchen doorway. As if Richard was not still under fresh soil. Then Malcolm stood. He did not raise his voice. He did not perform. He simply said, "Your Honor, we have reason to believe the document submitted by Mrs. Vivian Hale was fabricated using copied signatures and altered beneficiary pages. We also have cloud-stored evidence created by the deceased before his death, including video testimony, original estate documents, and digital records showing a pattern of manipulation." Vivian finally looked over. Her eyes landed on Daniel. For the first time since the burial, there was no smile. The judge agreed to review the evidence. The next 2 weeks felt like living inside a storm. Forensic experts examined metadata. The original will was compared against Vivian's version. Emails were traced. Security footage was verified. Every day revealed something worse. Vivian had not acted alone in emotion or confusion. She had planned carefully. She had begun 6 months before Richard died. While bringing him soup. While sitting beside him at doctor appointments. While telling Evelyn she should get rest, because Vivian could handle the paperwork. While smiling at Daniel across dinner tables. She had been studying passwords, copying keys, learning signatures, and waiting for a funeral to turn into opportunity. But the twist Vivian never saw coming was not in the will. It was in the blue folder. Daniel had almost missed it. The blue folder contained bank statements, old insurance forms, and a file named maintenance receipts. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that looked important. Then Malcolm noticed one receipt repeated 3 times. A storage facility. Unit B, 17. Paid yearly in advance by Richard. Daniel and Evelyn went there with Malcolm on a gray morning that smelled like wet concrete. The storage manager opened the metal door with a groan. Inside were boxes. 10 of them. Each labeled in Richard's handwriting. For Evelyn. For Daniel. For Court. For when they doubt me. Evelyn covered her mouth. Daniel opened the box marked for Court. Inside was a small external hard drive, 2 sealed envelopes, and a handwritten note. Vivian knows about the house. She does not know about B-17. On the hard drive was the final piece. An audio recording. Richard and Vivian. Recorded in his study 1 month before he died. Vivian's voice was calm. You need to update the estate documents, Richard. It's embarrassing that your ex-wife still has control of so much. Evelyn was not his ex-wife. They had separated once, years earlier, but never divorced. Richard's voice was weak but clear. Evelyn will be protected. Daniel will be protected. You will receive what we agreed. Vivian laughed. What we agreed? I gave up years for you. You were paid well. You lived well. I deserve more than a settlement. You deserve what is fair. Then came the words that changed everything. Vivian said, fair is whatever the final document says after you're gone. A long silence followed. Then Richard said, are you threatening me? Vivian's voice dropped. No, Richard. I'm reminding you that dead men don't explain signatures. When Daniel heard that recording, something inside him went cold. Evelyn stood and walked out of Malcolm's office without a word. Daniel found her outside near the stairwell, gripping the railing. I let her into my kitchen, Evelyn whispered. I made tea for her. Daniel stood beside her. I know. She hugged me at the burial. Daniel looked down. His mother's voice cracked. She hugged me while knowing she was going to throw me away. That was the moment Daniel stopped wanting revenge. Revenge felt too small. He wanted judgment. He wanted every lie dragged into daylight. The final hearing happened on a Friday morning. Rain hammered the courthouse windows so hard it sounded like applause. Vivian arrived late. This time she wore black. Not funeral black. Wore black. Her lawyer looked pale. Daniel noticed that immediately. Malcolm noticed too. The hearing began with documents. Then metadata. Then signatures. Then the email trail. Vivian's lawyer objected again and again, but each objection sounded weaker than the last. Then Malcolm requested permission to play Richard's video testimony. Vivian stood suddenly. No. The whole courtroom turned. Her lawyer grabbed her wrist. Sit down. But Vivian was staring at the screen being prepared near the front. No, she repeated louder. That video is private. Malcolm looked at the judge. The judge said, Mrs. Hale, sit down. Vivian sat. But her face had changed. The confidence was gone. Richard appeared on the screen. Daniel felt Evelyn's hand find his. His father looked tired, but his eyes were steady. My name is Richard Hale, he said. I am recording this because I believe my estate documents may be tampered with after my death. Vivian looked down. Richard continued. I want it known clearly that my home is to remain with Evelyn Hale for the rest of her life. My son, Daniel Hale, is to inherit my business shares through the trust described in my original will. Vivian Hale is to receive the amount specified in Section 4. Nothing more. The courtroom was silent. Richard leaned closer to the camera. If a document appears giving Vivian full control of my estate, that document is false. Evelyn began to cry silently. Daniel stared at the screen like he could keep his father alive by refusing to blink. Then Richard said the words that broke Vivian completely. "Vivian, if you are watching this, then you did what I prayed you would not do. I gave you comfort. I gave you dignity. I gave you a chance to leave this family with peace. But if you chose greed over mercy, then understand this. I did not leave my family defenseless." Vivian's lips trembled. For 1 second, Daniel saw not power, not glamour, not control. He saw fear. Malcolm played the audio recording next. When Vivian's own voice filled the room, saying dead men don't explain signatures, her lawyer closed his eyes. There was no coming back from that. By the end of the hearing, the judge froze all assets under Vivian's control, removed her temporary authority over the estate, ordered immediate review of the eviction, and referred the matter for criminal investigation. Vivian stood motionless as the courtroom emptied. Daniel helped Evelyn gather her purse. They were almost at the door when Vivian spoke. "Daniel." He stopped. Evelyn whispered, "Don't." But Daniel turned. Vivian's face was pale, but her eyes still carried a spark of the old poison. "You think he loved you more because he left you files?" she said. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. "No," he said. "I know he loved us because he knew exactly what you were." Vivian's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Daniel walked away. 3 weeks later, they returned to the house. The first thing Evelyn did was stand in the doorway and cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just tears falling as she touched the wall beside the entrance, the same wall where Daniel's height marks still remained under layers of old paint. Vivian had changed almost everything. The curtains. The furniture, the study, the garden lights. But she could not change the way the afternoon sun came through the front windows. She could not change the sound of the staircase. She could not change the small scratch near the kitchen doorway where Richard had once dropped a toolbox and blamed Daniel, even though Daniel was 6 and nowhere near it. Daniel walked into the study last. It looked empty now. Vivian's handbags were gone. The glass cabinet had been removed. On the floor, near the corner, Daniel found one thing she had missed. A small wooden box. Inside was the pocketknife his father had used at Mercy Lake. Daniel sat on the floor, holding it in both hands. Evelyn came in quietly. "He wanted you to have that," she said. Daniel nodded, unable to speak. That night, they did not celebrate. They ordered cheap soup from the restaurant Richard used to love, sat at the kitchen table, and ate in silence. The house felt too big, too wounded, too full of ghosts. After dinner, Daniel opened the cloud account one last time. There was still one video he had not watched. Its title was simple. Last one. Evelyn sat beside him. Daniel pressed play. Richard appeared, sitting outside at Mercy Lake. The water behind him was silver in the evening light. He looked peaceful. "I hope this video is never needed," he said. "But if it is, then I hope you are both home." Evelyn took Daniel's hand. Richard smiled faintly. "Daniel, I know you will want to understand why I kept so much hidden. The truth is I was ashamed. I let ambition blind me. I let the wrong person too close. And by the time I saw clearly, I was running out of days." His voice cracked. "But you and your mother were never mistakes. You were the life I was proud of." Daniel's vision blurred. Richard looked away toward the lake. "Take care of each other. Do not let this house become a museum of pain. Fill it with noise again. Open the windows. Burn the bad curtains if Vivian bought them." Evelyn laughed through tears. Richard smiled like he knew she would. "And Daniel, remember Mercy Lake. Remember the sky. Even falling stars still shine." The video ended. For a long time, neither of them moved. Outside, the night settled over the house. No shouting. No legal papers. No suitcase by the door. Just silence. But this time, the silence did not feel like fear. It felt like healing beginning quietly. Months later, Vivian's name appeared in the local news. Former widow charged in estate fraud investigation. Daniel did not click the article. He saw the headline, closed the laptop, and walked outside. Evelyn was in the garden, cutting away the flowers Vivian had planted and replacing them with lavender, Richard's favorite. Daniel helped her without being asked. They worked until sunset. At one point, Evelyn stopped and looked at the house. "Do you ever feel like he knew everything?" she asked. Daniel wiped dirt from his hands. "No," he said. "I think he knew enough." Evelyn nodded. Then she smiled for the first time in months. Not a big smile. Not the kind people post online. A real one. Alive. That evening, Daniel drove to Mercy Lake alone. He found the old picnic table near the water, weathered by years of rain and sun. For a moment he thought the carving would be gone. But when he brushed leaves away from the wood, there it was. Faint, but still readable. "Still we shine." Daniel sat there until the first stars appeared. He thought about the funeral, the eviction, the motel, the bakery room, his mother crying behind locked doors, Vivian smiling beside a grave, and his father, sick and running out of time, quietly building a trail of truth in a place nobody thought to check. Not a safe. Not a drawer. Not a lawyer's cabinet. A cloud account. The one place Vivian never looked because she believed power was something you could hold in your hand. A key. A signature. A house deed. A locked front door. But Richard Hale understood something she did not. The truth does not need a front door. It only needs one person brave enough to open it. And when Daniel finally stood to leave Mercy Lake, he looked up at the sky, watching one bright streak of light cut across the darkness. For the first time since the burial, he did not feel abandoned. He felt guided. Because Vivian had buried his father believing every secret had gone into the ground with him. She never checked his cloud account. And that was how a dead man came home to protect his family.
Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories. Like, comment your thoughts about the story and also the story you want to hear next. Share with loved ones and friends, so they too can enjoy the story as well. Thank you.